Hey everybody. Well, the Saints signed Derek Carr to a 4-year contract, estimated value of roughly $150 million, assuming, of course, he meets certain Derek Carr to a 4-year contract, estimated value of roughly $150 million, assuming, of course, he meets certain Derek Carr. Now, the problem here is that the contract and what led up to it points to what I have believed for quite some time. And even just as Jameis Winston came on with the Saints, it seemed the Saints were immediately in search of a great white hope. And I'll read a prepared statement that puts my thoughts in better alignment as opposed to running the risk of going all over the place. So here we are. Well, after almost 3 years of treating Jameis Winston like a subhuman, the New Orleans Saints have signed Derek Carr, who was a castoff from the once Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders, by managing general partner Mark Davis. First, I really do wish Derek Carr well, as he seems to be a good Christian man. Carr was the symbol of the Oakland Raiders, and as much as the Las Vegas Raiders signal caller, he gave us Raiders fans, like myself, many exciting moments, even if he had a tendency to throw the wrong pass at the wrong time. Second, the Saints, in the way the organization treated Jameis Winston, sent the message back to every black quarterback that, quote, we want you, but only if you can throw far or run fast or both. Otherwise, we'll back any white quarterback we can sign, unquote. Indeed, Saints defensive end Cam Jordan said as much when he remarked in a tweet that the Saints, quote, prefer a certain type of quarterback, unquote. We all know that means white and not black quarterbacks. Going after Deshawn Watson was merely a ruse. The truth is, the Saints were never serious about him. The third point I'll get to in a moment, and because I want to talk about Derek Carr's situation and the Jameis Winston matter. I will talk Jameis first, but briefly. Jameis Winston is a record-setting, Heisman Trophy-winning national champion who set records, but has seen his career tainted by playing 1 year in a horribly designed passing offense under Tampa Bay Buccaneers then head coach Bruce Arians. You know, the risk it, no biscuit guy, right? Then Jameis found himself released by the Bucs only to watch them change their offense to throw short passes to fit the quarterback legend Tom Brady's request. Then, as Winston rode the bench, Brady led the Bucs, defense helped, to the Super Bowl. That produced the idea that the Bucs were better without Winston, only to have fans, listen to this now, only to have fans watch them fail to return to the Super Bowl for the next 2 years. You've seen that. You know what that looked like, okay? During that time, in 2021, Jameis Winston had his best year ever under then head coach Sean Payton, only to see it come to an end 9 games into the season, after a bounty-style horse collar tackle by Bucs linebacker Devin White. Just yanked them down. Then, in the 2022 season, which was last year, Sean Payton strangely retired, while Saints general manager Mickey Loomis and the ownership elected to retain Saints defensive coordinator Dennis Allen as head coach. Jameis Winston's 2022 NFL season looked more promising than what the 2021 season implied, because the Saints went out and brought in Jarvis Landry, wide receiver, drafted Chris Olave, and saw the return of the legendary Michael Thomas. The one factor the Saints strangely forgot was to use the same ball control passing offense that Winston flourished in under Sean Payton. The result was a first game against the Atlanta Falcons that saw Winston bruised and battered, but the Saints corrected those, or should I say, corrected those problems in passing blocking during the game, and Winston engineered the greatest comeback in Saints history. Remember that, okay? If you didn't see that game, watch it, okay? They beat the St. Falcons on a last-minute field goal. Sadly, it was revealed that Winston broke his back during the contest. Still, the Saints started him against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, his old team. The injury, the back injury, coupled with the Saints' use or continued use of a mid-range and not a short passing contest, led to his poor performance and further injury with a loss. By the time of the Carolina Panthers game, which is game 3, right? The Saints should have held Winston out, but didn't. The bad blocking scheme was bested by a terrible offensive play calling sheet, and Winston was literally beaten up, broken back, bad hip, sprained foot. All courtesy of the Saints under Dennis Allen. Then the Saints went out to get Derek Carr. Will he fare better? My personal feelings aside, no. I like Derek Carr, but not the situation. And this gets to my third point. Period. Derek Carr has a lot of new things to process. New city, new home, new church, new fans, new building, new offense, new locker room, new players, new media personalities. All right? That's not to mention new coaches, new politicians. He has a lot under his plate, all right? Derek Carr has never been in this place before. He's got to settle his wife and kids, too, if you think about it. Plus, he's as close, Derek Carr is, to a born Raider as you can get. He was born in Fresno, played at Fresno State, both in California, if you don't know, okay? Pegged to start for the Silver and Black as soon as he was drafted, arguably. Treated like kid glove royalty until Mark Davis brought in the Pats crew of Josh McDaniels and David Ziegler, Now Carr has to adjust to his third regime in 3 years. Think about that. That's 3 regimes in 3 years. Yeah, he started out in 3 years. He started out with Gruden, then shifted to McDaniel. And if you want to put a finer point on it, you could say, okay, from Gruden to Rich Bisaccia to Josh McDaniel to Dennis Allen. That's actually 4 regimes in 3 years. But let's just go with the 3 since one of them were the same team, okay? 3 regimes in 3 years. He has to adjust to that. That's a lot on his plate. Moreover, the biggest problem of all is that Derek Carr doesn't come with a Tom Brady-like history. In fact, his overall numbers are not overwhelmingly better than Jameis Winston's at all. An 87.5 QBR for Jameis Winston versus 91.8 for Derek Carr. And note, Derek Carr played in a ball control passing offense for his entire career. Jameis Winston played in one for only 1 year of his career. Jameis was asked to throw deep a lot. That's not a recipe for a high completion percentage. But the offenses that Derek Carr played in are. Offense and plays and scheme matter. Don't think they don't because you don't know them. Learn them. It's fun. Derek Carr gets an on-paper better defense to play in, but that assumes he plays well in the offense that's new to him. The bet here is that Derek Carr has a rough start before settling in with the Saints, but I wish him well. Now, let me turn to how Winston was handled, okay? He was handled terribly. I've said it. Many of you, including I would think some of you watching, have said it. You've seen it. Let's chronicle what was done to Jameis Winston. He was brought in, and I was told that contrary to my thought, the Saints had no idea about Winston's true talent other than what they saw him do with Bruce Arians and the Bucks. Okay? They didn't know what they had in the building. So they had this preseason competition that really shouldn't have been between Taysom Hill, local favorite, and Jameis Winston, the new person, expecting that Hill would win. And you had certain people like Trump backers who may have ties to the Saints organization. I haven't investigated that yet. Buying multiple Twitter accounts to pay for Winston to be hammered by bad information on social media. All during that time, accounts that had little followers, a new origin, like they were made that year or the year before. And if you check the rest of their Twitter feed, it was all conservative stuff. And they thought no one would notice. Hey, it's the first thing that I checked for. They were all out of the blue tweeting about Jameis Winston, looking to start conversations and arguments and fights. All part of the MAGA effort to make it seem like we were more racist than they are. We'd say, why would they pick Jameis Winston? Because of the Erica Kinsman affair and the fact that she's blonde. If Erica Kinsman were black, they would not have paid attention to him. But and as a digression, I want you to ask yourself this question. I want you to ask this question very seriously. Okay, why would conservative publications like Breitbart and the Daily Caller take time to write almost exclusively about Jameis Winston as opposed to any other quarterback, including Tom Brady, on a regular basis? It's because they had pegged Jameis Winston as a kind of a meme for the kind of racist commentary they wanted to introduce into society. That's why. They couldn't get over the fact that Jameis Winston had slept with Erica Kinsman, even though the fact of the matter is that was all part of a fraud to get money out of Winston. That was proven. All right. And on top of that, they seem to forget the one fact that even Erica Kinsman's auntie and her lawyer didn't want anybody to know. When Erica Kinsman's lawyer auntie said that her niece didn't sleep with any, quote, black boys, unquote. She said that. Well, she'd been sleeping with one the entire time, and now that person is her husband. And she literally hid him away to say nothing, even though she had had sex with that man just 8 hours roughly before she met Jameis at Potbelly's in Jacksonville. All this is on record. But what happened was that his issue, and then there's the Uber driver, which I'll get in a second, were all used against him. Let's take the Uber driver now. I was informed by a person whose name I will not utter, who did represent Jameis Winston, that he didn't want to talk about Jameis Winston, or he could not, primarily, I believe, for legal reasons. I was informed by somebody else that that person was part of a crew that was within his camp. He's not there anymore, who put him in a bad situation with that Uber driver, telling the Uber driver, oh, by the way, you've got an expensive passenger there. In other words, just chortling out in the wee hours of the morning that he's putting in a rich, slightly inebriated quarterback in his car without supervision to make sure he would get home. He set him up. And then let's take the now far removed public relations person who allegedly, according to what I was told by several people, was actually selling bad information about Jameis to other publications. So it's pretty hard to be successful when you have people in your camp actively working against your success. That's what Jameis was faced with. That's the truth. There is nothing wrong with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston made the choice to go to Florida State out of Bessemer, Alabama, rather than Alabama. There are a lot of people who are upset with that, but he's his own man. That's what he decided to do. He didn't come to the NFL draft. He had his party in Bessemer, Alabama. All right. So he is a lover of the South, and he believes in the maintenance of and the growth of Black culture and how he defines Black culture. I say that because there are 38 ways to define it. That's another story. None of that should have anything to do with his playing quarterback, but it does, and it has by the way he's been treated. He was not given the kind of playing field a person who's done what he's done on the field over his career should be given. One of the league leaders in overall passing yards and a great member of the community. Popular in the locker room that Derek Carr is going to have to get used to with his teammates, and particularly willing to get up even on his crutches and dance to hip hop in the locker room. But Derek Carr has never done that with the Raiders. Ever. Okay? So Cam Jordan is right. The Saints have made it clear, loud and clear, they want a, quote, certain type of quarterback. And that's why I use the title, The Saints Finally Got Their Great White Hope. Hope. And let's get to that. I've said it before, and I'll say it again in this space, in this video blog that I made. Derek Carr is going into a high pressure situation. Oh, and I forgot mention the other big factor of that situation. He's mad at the Raiders for how Mark Davis treated him on the way out the door. I didn't like it. A lot of Carr fans didn't like it. But some of you watching this would say, well, Zinni, you were never really behind Derek Carr. No. Let's get that straight again. I'm happy to tell you that what I said then was that Derek Carr should have been made to compete against Matt McGloin through the season, not just plugged in at the start. But they brought Derek Carr in and got him for marketing reasons because he is a marketable quarterback in person, and he was a symbol of the Raiders' future image, as well as the overall league desire to put in what I call the triplets, or their version of the star quarterback, running back, and wide receiver as a key, or one of the keys to upping the franchise value of the organization, which at that point was not where it should have been by any stretch of the imagination. It was completely an undervalued and undersold asset, talking about the Raiders. So Derek is a big part of that, and that's why they really treated him like kid gloves over and above his performance. And let's face it, and this is what's going to infuriate a lot of Saints fans, and you don't want to hear this, but Derek Carr is legendary for making that play that loses the game you think you won. As much as Derek Carr has done for the Raiders in giving us great fourth quarter comebacks and set the record for them, I believe, with the Raiders in the NFL, the other side of it are the plays he didn't make. Now, yeah, we can talk about the defense and how the defense is low ranked and so on. But the bottom line, and what frustrated Mark Davis, and what I grudgingly agree with because I don't dislike Derek Carr, I actually like Derek Carr, is that Carr did not make the plays that would make the difference when they needed to be made the most. So yeah, he'll do well here and here and here, but when it comes to hitting the coup de grace jugular, to doing what it takes to win the big one, you know what? That's not him. All right. If you're getting that and you think it's him, you're making a gigantic mistake. Derek Carr was in a situation where he was coddled. He was anointed. And then Mark Davis decided not to do that again. Decided to put him under real competition, which he had never been under. Not in any time in his entire career had Derek Carr been had in a place where he had to compete against another quarterback just to keep his job. But that's exactly what Josh McDaniels put him in. And then he talked to him in a way that Carr didn't like being talked to. Derek Carr is a sensitive guy. And he once told off a reporter who got a little smart mouth. And I'm not saying that Derek Carr's pushback wasn't justified. It was. But, you know, you could simply have ignored it, or just said something like, hey, why can't we be friends? You know, but you've seen it on the podium. The higher the pressure has gotten, the more emotional Derek Carr has been over the past 2 years. He's felt the heat. All right. He felt the heat before Josh McDaniels came in. He felt the heat while Josh McDaniels was there, and eventually cried about it for good reasons. Okay. It was a sad situation for him, but it pales into comparison with how the Saints treated Jameis Winston. Pales. Two great Christian men. I hope they get a chance to play together. But I do pray that Jameis Winston goes to a place where he is truly wanted and valued, and finally the chains that Americans put on black men are taken off him, because they do that to us. And I don't mean chains of slavery. I mean chains of put downs, devaluation, distrust, and overall malaise in expectations of us. So we're not given the chance to do that for you or anybody else, let alone ourselves. This is the biggest problem we face in the United States. And in closing, folks, I want you to take an unflinching look at the impact of race in our society. Unflinching. Don't be one of these people that goes for statistics, because here's what's wrong with someone that says, well, oh, I have a lot of African Americans commit crimes. Well, look, you have a lot of African Americans who are denied many basic things and yet have to live. You don't get it to them, okay? You do not give it to them, all right? So what do you expect if you are in that situation? When you prize yourselves as being conservative, which by the way you're not, throw up these statistics, all you're doing is you're presenting the impact of racism on people. That's all you're doing. That is all. Racism is a mental illness that must be stamped out. It is so bad that the United States of America's very social structure has been wrecked by it. What do I mean? All of our competitor countries are monoethnic. Only the UK and the United States are multi-ethnic. But we don't take care of our own. The others, Germany, Japan, Norway, Sweden, I can go on and on and on. They have no problem having good social programs for their people. But in the United States, we seem to have a problem with it, and we really seem to have a problem taking care of our kids. These are what Abraham Lincoln once said in his Gettysburg Address, are arguably before the social safety net, but still the hard facts that created America. Just make sure that these are not hard facts that continue to define America. Demand for change, even if it's just with a sentence. That's all you have to do. Let me get Al Spooner says, Dennis Allen and Derek will be fired in 2 years. Could happen. It could happen. Which would get to the other question. What happened with Dennis Allen and Derek Carr in Oakland? And I'll tell you as a witness, I blogged about it, and I'll say it here again because it presented itself yet again. Dennis Allen is here, okay, yet his attention to detail is here, all right? And this is as high as I can go and as low as I can go. Dennis Allen does not demand an attention to detail in the presentation of his offense. What do I mean? I mean little things like how you line up as a formation. What does that mean? How your players conduct themselves to the point where they don't get in the fights, right? Bill Walsh had a rule. Hey, look, do not talk to your opponent. Your opponent is an object you have to run through. You do not talk to objects. The Saints violated that as many chances as they possibly could get. That's on Dennis Allen's watch. Less so Sean Payton, but that is on Dennis Allen's watch. Dennis did not set the right organizational tone, and still has not set the right organizational tone for that team in that city, let alone the owners of the Saints. And yet, for reasons best known unto them, they do not strive to build a better plan and execute it with a different head coach, with a different general manager, okay? Because this also falls on Mickey Loomis. All of it. The Saints are largely undisciplined. And for those of you who say, well, they had a top 10 defense, look, if your defense is really, really good, they stop organizations when it matters the most. The Saints did not do that. The Ravens had defenses that have done that. The Buccaneers, too. There are a number of organizations that have had defenses that were able to stop and make that play and get the championship. The Saints haven't had that. So you can be good between the 20s during the regular season, but do you have enough to overcome your offense's weaknesses and get the ball anyway? The Saints didn't. The Saints traded away their best safety prospect to the Eagles, where he promptly led the league in interceptions the same year last year. Why? Well, that little problem, okay, that little problem of how the Saints treat black players versus white came up, leading back to Cam Jordan's statement that the Saints want a particular type of person at quarterback. Folks, this is the 21st century. Just say it straight out like what it really is. That's too nuanced, but we know what he meant. Cam Sithouse says, this is crazy. How did Derek Carr get a 4-year deal and he hasn't shown the Saints anything, and Jameis only got basically a 1-year deal as a starter? Because Derek Carr didn't come with the baggage that Jameis had. And it wasn't really the 30 interception year. It was really things in his past that certain people couldn't get over, even though, as I said, with Erica Winston, was proven to be fraud, straight out. And the crab leg incident, he was given those because he was a football star. That was acknowledged even by Jim Harbaugh and others who talked to him. Basically, Jameis Winston got in the same situations as any white counterpart would, but the vast difference is they didn't get into trouble and he did. I'll give you one example of a person I'm talking about when I think about that. Blaine Gabbert. I'm thinking about when I talk about that. Blaine Gabbert. Blaine Gabbert in 2011 was hoisted up as for a time, more a desired quarterback to Cam Newton. All right. An Associated Press writer who I know, I'm not going to bother to blast his name because I've done it before. And I also wrote specifically about him and what he did. And I told him about it. Put out an article that was completely racist against Cam Newton, dredging up examples of all these black quarterbacks, but not mentioning they're black, and then talking about their negatives and then comparing them to Cam. All right. This person even wrote that Blaine Gabbert played in a pro-style offense, okay, whereas Cam Newton did not, played in a spread. Well, the truth is, for anybody that actually knows football, Blaine Gabbert played in a spread offense in Missouri, not a pro style. But you see how people in the media play with these words for reasons that are essentially racist? And that's gone on for some time, ever since the emergence of the black quarterback, all right? Ever since, okay? So there it is, A-Camps, to answer your question. They wanted him to prove it with their organization. But I made the Hallmark video on Jameis Winston's capabilities before the Saints signed him, pointing out that his best years would be in a ball control passing offense. I said that over and over again, and the Saints under Sean Payton proved it. Ball control passing. The same offense that Derek Carr has played in, I might add, for all of his career. All right. John Marks, he says, congratulations to the Saints. Because I see some comparisons between Carr and former quarterback Bobby Haber, Oakland Raiders. Okay. Saints signed Haber. All right. He says, I don't think Carr makes the Saints that much better. Honestly, I feel, he writes, we can win the division and that's about it. We could have done that. Same thing with Jameis, a lot cheaper too. Hey, Camps, I agree with you. But something else too. There's this idea of the division that I think is based on where the division was last year rather than the fact of the matter. The division is in flux. We don't know who the Panthers quarterback will be. It could wind up being Jameis. We don't know. Wouldn't that be something? Huh? That'd be funny. We don't know who the Buccaneers quarterback will be, the Panthers quarterback. All right. Saints. Okay. We don't know. We don't know. All right. We know the Falcons have Desmond Ritter, but hey, Desmond had a great ending, but for a number of people, the jury is still out because even the Falcons fans keep talking about the need for another quarterback because there's so many good ones coming out. We're in an era where people want to draft or trade for quarterbacks that they believe will basically make them better. In other words, that's another way of saying, hey, look, our coaching is lousy, but we're not going to get another coach. We'd rather get a quarterback that covers up that coach's weaknesses. Get one who can run, who can throw far, who's like really big and strong. And I'll take a black guy. And under those circumstances, the Saints say, but if I have to play him normally like a white guy, then I'm going to take the white guy. Come on. That's ridiculous. I feel sorry for Andy Dalton in those situations because he was promised to be the backup. Then the Saints shifted on him, telling Jameis that Jameis would be the starter even if he got injured. Didn't treat him right. Okay. Didn't treat him right. And John Mark says, Saints are not Super Bowl material, but heading into the direction. The Saints were in that direction more so last year. This year, again, they're still in flux. If they wind up getting rid of Cam Jordan, also they've got new coaches coming in. There are a lot of changes that don't, for me, put that exclamation point on. Because let's face it, Derek Carr is also not known for mobility. All right. Andy Dalton was reasonably mobile. Jameis was mobile. But hey, look, when you tell Devin White, and I'm alleging that the Buccaneers took a bounty out against him to go and horse collar tackle Jameis Winston, because that's what he did. And you do that knowing doggone well you're going to injure somebody. Okay. All right. But prior to that, and even in that game, Winston was stepping up in the pocket, making completions, had driven the Bucs to a 7-7 tie downfield in a beautiful drive. All right. Beautiful. Okay. All right. So how about this? Aaron Rodgers goes to the Panthers. I think Aaron Rodgers, that could probably possibly happen, but my thought is pure and simple that Rodgers needs to ask himself if he wants to play football, he enjoys it. And on that, let me get to this about Derek Carr. I interviewed Derek Carr way back in 2015, and I had the pleasure of doing so, and I stated to Will Kiss, who is the Raiders' great PR director, via email, that I wanted to make YouTube videos about their use of the new approach that Bill Musgrave, the offensive coordinator for the Raiders, was putting in, that combined elements of the Chip Kelly offense with the elements of the Cal offense under Tony Franklin, who's been on my show twice. Okay. And I was really into that. I was really still am into those variations of the air raid mixed with the West Coaster Bill Walsh offense. All right. All of that. And so to that end, I went to the game and went down to the locker room and found Mr. Carr. I was in a scrum of reporters at the time. And when it came my turn, I asked him about the offense. And Derek told me something I never forgot, and I will show you here. He said to me that he only does what they tell him to do. In other words, he didn't understand it, right? It wasn't something he understood, but it was something about, but he did, excuse me, I'm going through these, but Carr did take time to at least tell me what was on his mind. In other words, he doesn't think about all the philosophy and where it came from and all that. But the difference between him and Jameis Winston is that Jameis Winston is a football junkie when it comes to plays and such things as formations and different types of strategy. Jameis Winston is a true football junkie. And I think that's the difference. The Derek Carr has a more of a balanced life per se. Jameis has his kids and family to take care of and worry about. But when he's not doing that, Jameis Winston is football, and community related to football. He loves it. He loves everything that goes with it, okay? But Derek Carr is a man of the cloth who really should be at the pulpit. He should retire and start his own church. I'd attend. I'd become a member. He's fantastic. He is a fantastic Christian man, okay? No question about it. Derek Carr is a fantastic Christian man. Not going to take that away from him at all. At all. To do so would be criminal, okay? I heard him give a sermon a few weeks ago, and I just was like, wow, okay? I found the interview that I did with Derek Carr. I'm going to share it with you here, okay? And I'm going to try to find the part where he got to me, and then I have to now fold this into StreamYard, which I'm going to do right now. And it's present, share screen, and here is Derek Carr right there. Okay, so let me turn this up and play it for you momentarily. Get that out of the way. Here we go.
I'm going to fix that. I'll get that fix you put on me, and we'll get right.
Mr. Carr, what's the main difference between the design of this year's offense versus last year's offense?
It's hard to say. There's obviously in the NFL, a lot of people carry the same concepts, and they maybe just call it something else. But I don't really think there's too much major of a difference. We just go out and, whatever coach calls, that's what we're going to do. We can do a lot of things, so whatever he calls, that's what we'll do.
Are you running the read option more this year? Because Coach Musgrave mentioned bringing elements of Chip Kelly's offense into this offense.
If he wants to, I'm all for it. But that's up to him and when they get their staff meetings.
Yeah, see, I appreciate that he answered it. It was more. I wasn't trying to take him off guard or like be smart or anything. I love football strategy, and I sense for him, it's more just a part of what he does in the game. But there are people I've talked to, like Ed Too Tall Jones, about the flex defense, who can talk about its history, how hard it is to learn. These are folks who are into their schemes. And Derek Carr does not strike me as that kind of person. So that's why I think the adjustment's going to be hard, but it's one that he's got to make. And let's face it, 150 million on the table is a pretty good reason to want to do that, at least try, right? So, more power to him. But I'm telling you, Jameis Winston's best days have not yet been seen. And Cam says, I'm a Saints fan and Florida State fan, so Jameis coming to the Saints was a dream come true for me because I know what he's capable of. He didn't get a fair shake in NOLA. I hope he balls out elsewhere. Mark says, Winston go to the Raiders. And John Mark says, I wish Derek Carr well and the Saints, as do I. And I'll continue to be a fan of the Saints for reasons connected to the Bensons and to my friend Doug Thornton, who saved the Superdome during Katrina and is still the managing director there, or the manager of the Superdome. And was kind enough to give me, not one, two occasions, some great interviews. The first one we ever did, actually, was about how he saved the Superdome. That's right here on Zenny62 YouTube. Just type Doug Thornton and enjoy. It's about 30 minutes long, so get your favorite beverage. All right. Thank you for your time. Live long and prosper. God bless you. All right. And thank you. And please, if you haven't done so before, subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark OaklandNewsNowBlog.com and Zenny62.com. That ends this broadcast. Thank you.